All right. I call this meeting to order at 3:33 p.m. Introductions, I'll start with myself. I'm Latanya Williams. I am the interim chair for today. Starting over to my right, so Byron.
Byron Leak.
Mark Teague.
Leo Suarez.
Linda Davis.
Tan Truth.
All right, next up, we have a long agenda today and a lot of things to cover since we didn't meet last month. But do I have approval for the April, May, and June minutes?
I move we approve those.
I do have an addition, though, for the May the 9th meeting. Due to the incomplete delivery of our motion, I would recommend that the minutes from May the 9th be sent to all city council. There's many conversations that questions from the disabled community of the equity, and that portion was not delivered. The free senior, youth, and Medicare being 50% off was not delivered properly.
In the minutes or?
From the original minutes that came from the board to city council on June the 4th did not include it, and plus staff did not also include it in their presentation. They reported the R line, they reported the free fare, but they did not deliver the free programs for seniors and youth. And I will tell you, there is a discrimination suit filed now because the community does not understand why the paratransit and disabled community do not qualify for the same programs as fixed route. To my understanding, it's a policy matter, so I don't know if it needs to be in discussion with our board. Staff told me last week that it was in the early 2000s where the RTA and the city council at that time recommended the free programs for the bus system, but they did not include the paratransit program. Okay. So I want to make that mentioned and move forward to the city council that they can see this concern.
Okay, so all minutes are available in board docs. So if something is missing or needs to be modified, David, how do we handle that? And then the second part of Mark's question, I say we defer that to finance. So any pricing or any adjustments to that, I'm gonna defer that to Linda. So Linda, if you can get back to us next month or after this discussion, so that needs to be handled in finance, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounded like Mark is okay with the minutes themselves, so that vote could go ahead and take place. But he wants that conversation that was just presented to come back to the board or the committee, if you refer it there, to make that, have that conversation about referring the full set of minutes to the council.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'll second
All right.
your motion.
So there's been a motion to second the minutes. And everyone agree to say aye?
Aye.
Any nay? All right. Next up, are there any revisions or additions to the agenda? All right. We have next as public comment, not until 4 o'clock, so we'll proceed to the next item with Raleigh Water Bioenergy.
Yes, we have our Assistant Director of Raleigh Water, Miss Erica Bailey, here to give a presentation on their bioenergy recovery project from which Go Raleigh will benefit by receiving renewable natural gas.
Good afternoon. My name is Erica Bailey. I'm an assistant director with Raleigh Water. It's my pleasure to be able to present to you an overview and update of our bioenergy recovery project. This is a project that we're very excited about. It's in the process of startup, and it will allow us to sustainably manage our solids generated at all three of Raleigh Water's the city's resource recovery or wastewater treatment facilities. A key component of this project is that we are reusing the biogas that's generated as part of the anaerobic digestion process, and we're going to be producing renewable natural gas, which will primarily be utilized to fuel the Go Raleigh buses. Give me just one second. Okay, back on. Apologies for that. So what I'll do is I'll start with a overview of who Raleigh Water is, what we do, and then I'm going to talk about the bioenergy recovery project, why we're doing it, what it is. I'll walk you through very high level what it is, what the project is in terms of processes, how we're going to be producing renewable natural gas for the buses, and then highlight some of the overall project benefits, and then where we're at with the project and when we anticipate that we're going to be producing renewable natural gas for the buses. So a little bit about Raleigh Water. We serve a population of about 630,000 people, and that includes not only the city of Raleigh, but it also does include 6 merger utilities as well, or merger towns as well, which includes the town of Gardner, Knightdale, Wendell, Zebulon, Wake Forest, and Rollsville. So we have 2 water treatment plants that provide drinking water to our service area, and we treat about an average of 54 million gallons per day. And then we have 2,400 miles of water distribution line to get that out to the individual customers. Then we have 2,600 miles, I know it's a lot of miles to think about, of wastewater pipelines in order to collect and convey that wastewater to 3 wastewater treatment facilities, which we call resource recovery facilities. And we treat an average of about 51 million gallons per day of wastewater. Next thing I'm going to talk to you about the Neuse River Resource Recovery Facility, which is where Bioenergy Recovery Project is being constructed. This is actually the largest permitted wastewater treatment plant in North Carolina currently. It has a permitted capacity of 75 million gallons per day. It incorporates advanced nutrient removal, like all 3 of our plants, because we discharge to the Neuse River, which is a nutrient-sensitive water. It is also our centralized biosolids processing facility, which means that we manage the solids generated from all 3 of our plants at Neuse River. Historically, we have done that using several different management options, but moving forward, bioenergy is going to replace all of those options. And actually, let's see if I can get this back on. There we go. Back in. So what is the Bioenergy Recovery Project? This is a comprehensive biosolids upgrade project that will be implemented at New Server, and it's going to allow us to sustainably manage the residuals generated at all 3 of our resource recovery facilities. We are converting to an innovative advanced anaerobic digestion process. And while we're not the first utility in the country implementing this technology, we are one of the early adopters of this technology in the United States. A key component of this project is that it includes energy recovery from the biogas. So that's where we're going to be producing renewable natural gas and utilize that to provide fuel to the Go Raleigh buses. Why are we doing this project? Well, there's multiple reasons. While those historical solids handling systems served us well, a lot of the equipment was approaching the end of its useful life. So we needed to do something to replace that equipment. And as we started to look at, well, what do we need to do for the future, we also needed to plan ahead for our future capacity needs. So the city of Raleigh's, we have a large growing service area, and we needed to provide a solution that not only meets our needs for today, but also for the future. It was also very important to us to find a resilient and reliable solution that meets the Environmental Protection Agency's strictest standards for biosolids, which are called Class A biosolids. And so we focused on solutions that would meet those strictest standards. And finally, it was very important to us to find a solution that aligned with the strategic plan objectives of sustainability and energy efficiency. So we completed a master plan, looked at different alternatives, and the bioenergy recovery project was identified as the best fit solution for meeting all of these drivers. So I mentioned that we are incorporating an innovative advanced anaerobic digestion process. Very high level, I want to explain what that means. So the technology we're incorporating is we're putting in what's called a thermal hydrolysis process upstream of the anaerobic digestion process to treat the solids. And that basically is a preconditioning step that then allows the downstream anaerobic digestion process to operate more efficiently, which means we're going to produce more biogas to produce more RNG for the buses. It also means that we'll produce less solids on the backside of the process, which means we have less solids to manage. And this thermal hydrolysis process is basically like a pressure cooker, is the way I like to describe it, to precondition the solids. So the last thing it does is it actually pasteurizes the solids, which helps us to meet the EPA's requirements for the biosolids for Class A. And this just shows a very simple process flow diagram. I want you to focus on where it says new project scopes, so the bottom part of the system, of the diagram. And this is showing very simply the wastewater treatment process. So in a wastewater treatment process, we produce solids where we collect and capture the influent solids, and then we generate biological solids where we have a biological process that treats the organics and nutrients. And those are the solids that feed into this process. The key takeaway here is that it's a multi-step process. So it includes multiple processes, including screenings, a pre-dewatering process, the thermal hydrolysis, the pressure cookers I just described, then the anaerobic digesters. And the anaerobic digesters creates 2 products, the solids product, which is what we'll then take to dewatering to get as much water out of it as possible. And that's what we can beneficially reuse as a soil conditioner that will meet the Class A biosolids. But the second is the biogas. And the biogas is what we will then treat. And that biogas is about 60% methane. And the methane is actually what we want to capture. We want to remove the other constituents out of the biogas and capture up to 98% of that methane. And that's what then allows us to produce renewable natural gas to fuel the buses. This just shows a visualization of what the campus looks like. And this was actually drawn up at the beginning of the project. and it includes the backside of the plant. And I'm going to show a picture here now that shows an aerial from fall 2023 that shows the actual where we're at today. So this is a drone picture of the plant. So it is looking very much like the final product. That's because we were about 92% complete at the time this picture was taken, and now we can say we're almost near completion, and we hope to be producing renewable natural gas by sometime in by the end of October. So let's talk a little bit more about how we're going to be producing reusable biogas. So I'm showing that simple picture again of the anaerobic digester. Again, the biogas is one of the byproducts. It's about 60% methane. So we're going to be taking that and taking it through a gas upgrading system. So there's other constituents in there, like hydrogen sulfide, organics, and other constituents that we need to remove. So the process is basically focused on removing those impurities and then trying to capture as much methane as we can to something greater than 98% methane. We ultimately need to meet the North Carolina gas quality standards because we're going to be injecting into a Dominion's natural gas pipeline. And so there's requirements as to what are the standards that we have to meet. So our plan is to produce that renewable natural gas, inject it into Dominion Energy's natural gas pipeline. We have an interconnect agreement with Dominion that Council approved in 2022. And then we will primarily utilize that to fuel the Go Raleigh buses. We've been working very closely with transportation on what their fuel usage is versus what we think we're going to produce. And it looks like right now that we may produce just a little bit more than what the current Go Raleigh CNG bus fleet is using. But then as the bus fleet continues to grow, it's going to exceed the amount of renewable natural gas that we're producing. So initially, we may have just a little bit extra that we need to go find other transportation end uses for. If there's not another use in the city, we'll sell that out on the market. But our primary plan is for it to all go to Go Raleigh. And then eventually, a few years out, Go Raleigh will use all the renewable natural gas and then may need a supplemental supply on top of that. Because we are producing renewable natural gas and utilizing it for transportation purposes, we are going to be able to generate renewable energy credits associated with this project. And these are called renewable identification numbers, and those credits can actually be sold to obligated parties, which are like gas companies, and it will be a source of revenue as well for Raleigh Water. So in just kind of closing out, just a few more slides, I wanted to highlight the project benefits. There's many benefits here, and to spend just a couple minutes to highlight some of the key benefits. So on the Raleigh Water side, I always like to start on the right-hand side of this where it shows almost a 50% reduction in the amount of solids that we are going to produce compared to historically what we've produced. Right now, our solids disposal and hauling costs are probably one of our highest operating costs for wastewater treatment. And so getting a 50% reduction means a significant reduction in our operating costs. Then moving to the bottom right-hand side of the figure, being able to produce a Class A product that can be beneficially distributed versus having to go to a landfill is also very much of a benefit. Then going to the top of the graph, this is a net energy production project, which means that we're going to produce more energy or get more energy out of that renewable natural gas than the amount of energy we had to put in to make it. And we anticipate that initially we're going to be able to fuel more than 70 Go Raleigh buses per day. And because this is a green energy project, we actually qualified for a zero interest $50 million loan on the project. And now moving to the left-hand side of the figure, this project is estimated to provide an 11% reduction in the city's municipal operation carbon footprint. And I want to explain that a little further. That is because the buses have converted from diesel to compressed natural gas, and then are utilizing renewable natural gas. So it's those three steps together that is allowing us to get that 11% reduction in our municipal, so that's our government operations. But that's a significant move of the dial and helping us to meet some of our city's overall carbon reduction goals. And then finally, the last benefit is those revenues that are going to be achieved through using the RNG for transportation purposes. And finally, I wanted to also note that this also was a recommended strategy as part of the city's Community Climate Action Plan, and that it has multiple connections to the City of Raleigh's strategic plan initiatives, specifically because it's supporting implementation of one of the Community Climate Plan actions, Community Climate Action Plan actions, and then also it is supporting renewable natural gas usage in the Go Raleigh buses. And then finally, another major element of the Community Climate Action Plan is waste reduction, and so the 50% waste reduction also aligns very well. Where we're at today, so we began construction of this project in 2019, began planning of it many years before that, but just very happy to report out that the solids upgrades are almost done. We are in the process of filling up the anaerobic digesters, so all the processes upstream of the anaerobic digester are operational. And as I'm up here speaking, the gas upgrading system is getting tested out, and we anticipate that it's going to be commissioned and started up over the next month. And then we have some samples we have to collect for Dominion to prove that we're meeting the gas quality standards. And then at that point, that's the point at which we get the approval to inject into the Dominion pipeline. So that's where I said we hope by mid-October, at the earliest, the end of October is the estimated timeline that we'll be producing renewable natural gas. I did want to highlight this is a large CIP project or capital improvement project for Raleigh Water. It's in fact our largest one to date. The solids handling upgrades were about $183 million. But we did get that zero interest loan for $50 million of the project. And then also the remainder of the funding is coming from revenue bonds. And just to show a couple pictures, the picture to the left shows the anaerobic digesters, and at the top of the anaerobic digesters is where the blue arrow is pointing, is showing the biogas piping at the top of the anaerobic digesters. And then if you go to the picture to the right, you can see, again, the blue arrow is pointing to the biogas that's then being taken over to the gas upgrading system. And the gas upgrading system is over to the right, and then the final step in the process is we have a compressor that increases the pressure before we can inject into the Dominion pipeline. And the fenced-in area is where the Dominion Interconnect Station is located, and that's currently under construction. So with that, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to present to you today, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
I have one
Yes.
question. This is just kind of for my nerdness. What actual compounds are you using for the anaerobic digestive part? Like
What
for the anaerobic digestives, what particular species or antibiotic?
Okay, got it.
Bacteria are you
so
using?
what microorganisms are we using?
Correct.
So we actually seeded. So we brought in microorganisms from another wastewater treatment plant. I mentioned we weren't the first in the U.S., but we're one of the earlier adopters. So there's another utilities up in the Hampton Roads area, Hampton Roads Sanitation District. They have a treatment facility that has the same technology with this advanced anaerobic digestion process. That is not what you typically do with anaerobic digesters, but with this particular type of advanced anaerobic digester, it works better to seed it, so to bring in microorganisms from a similar type. And so we did that. So we had a period of time, starting in July, where we brought in multiple truckloads of those microorganisms from that other wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. Which ones, microorganisms? Just
Which
Yeah.
specific organisms?
Not all of them, but,
Oh.
I'm just thinking in case, like, if there's something ever leaked out, people would know, like, what's actually in there.
Oh, in terms of there's a wide variety of microorganisms that, there's actually some good NC State research that's been done on looking at, and some other research that's also been done that looking specifically at the different types of organisms. They all have really long names, so I can't say them specifically, but I can
No.
provide some references to those papers if
Sure, yeah. I was just thinking as long as it's not something like C. diff and all of that stuff that grows in people.
No, the microorganisms are, so they're natural. So when I said normal anaerobic digesters you don't seed, it's because wastewater has a natural source from where wastewater comes from. And so, so that's usually what starts your anaerobic digesters. The reason we seeded from another plant was just because this has that preconditioning step. It's good to have to seed from a similar type of process.
I got you.
Okay.
I get excited about this stuff, too.
Me too.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah. So just for clarify, we have CNG buses now, right? And the fuel comes from Dominion. Yeah. So for just the process, it'll still come from Dominion, or you're not pumping it directly in, right? So
Correct.
my guess is like all of it goes to Dominion once you tap in. And is there like a credit system that kind of works? It sounds
So,
similar to solar, from what I've seen anyway.
It's somewhat similar. So I had, in case you had this question, I put together a figure to kind of try to explain it.
There you go. Yeah, that answers it, yeah.
Because it's a little bit complicated. So you're correct. It's
Like a
so
net
the Dominion
metering.
pipeline is interconnected to the CNG because you have to show connectivity that we're using it for transportation purposes. So over at Neuse River, we have a interconnect station and there's a flow meter there. So that will record, all right, day one, you put 400 cubic feet per minute, or whatever the total is for the day. Then that goes into the Dominion pipeline, and then over at the Go Raleigh station, you also have a metering station over there with a flow meter. And then that flow meter is also recording how much is being utilized. And then we have a renewable natural gas manager, or that has a shipper. So under our interconnect agreement, we will be operating in a pooling agreement, and the shipper basically tries to balance those two things out so that the amount of RNG we produce equals how much the buses need, and then if there's excess, would be responsible for sending that excess off to another transportation end use. Right. But it's all about using those individual flow meters for balancing out how much of the RNG gets used over here versus if there's any excess RNG to go elsewhere, or if we're short, that a supplemental supply would be provided. But it's still connected to the Dominion pipeline.
Yeah.
You're just using a shipper to help with that balancing.
Sure. So, David, do any of the will our fuel costs go down?
We sure hope so. Yeah, we're actually working on a memorandum of agreement with Raleigh Water. The city attorneys are reviewing that now. We're going to use a standard, I forget what it's called.
An index.
An index, yeah, that forecast, pricing, and we're going to take that and use that as an average. And so what it should do is level out our fuel cost over the years. Right.
Okay. Thanks.
And if you recall, in our monthly reports, we're today at about 70% CNG buses and 25% diesel, 5% electric. And our fuel costs are about 75% towards diesel and 25% towards CNG. So already, just using Dominion Energy CNG, our fuel bills have dropped dramatically by transferring to CNG. And then this project will even stabilize it even more.
All right.
Chair,
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
I had a quick question here.
Please let me be quick because we have a long agenda and someone has to
No, I
stuff to
appreciate
vote
it.
on. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I really enjoy this project. and you shared much of the benefits, which is pretty clear. Why would someone have an argument against this project? I know y'all did a diligent job of selecting, but if it just one area.
Sure, sure. So I guess one of the considerations is, because I have a presentation that I give that talks about all the benefits and say, okay, what are the considerations? So one of the items I speak to in that is level of complexity. So you saw it's a large campus, and there's a lot of processes. So it does increase the level of complexity compared to what historically we have done. We've done a lot of training in preparation for startup in order to try to help to address that, and then also added additional staff as well to support the new facilities.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. I appreciate it. This has been very informative.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, so we're going to pause the agenda for public comments. And we have one, Davina Magnum, if I said that correctly. If I didn't, please forgive me. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Davina Mangum. I'm a Go Raleigh driver. I've been driving for 7 years. I love my job, but I'm tell you, those CNG buses are hard on the body. They're hard on your body. And you may save money on gas, but you're gonna lose on the other end with your drivers, because those buses are heavy, they are hard to drive, and they're not like the old buses. They're just not, But I'm not about the money, I don't know. But my thing is safety. My thing is really safety with the drivers, and it just seems like the bottom line is always money. Always money, money, money. And it's not worth lives of the drivers. It's not worth a lot of stuff. Drivers are getting hurt. Drivers are getting burnt out. Their anxiety, depression, all kinds of stuff. I've been on light duty for a while, and so I kind of be downtown to see the people that's down there. Last week, I couldn't take it. The people down there are emotionally draining. It's scary down there. It is just horrible. Horrible. I've seen it times when I first started where we had plenty of supervisors. They would patrol the platforms, get people out. You're not riding the bus. You got to go, get on a bus, go it wasn't chaos like it is now. It's just chaos all the time. And it's always seemed to be about the bottom line. It's always money. As long as you get butts in the seat, that's the only thing that matters for this company and this city. And it's not right. And the people that said you can't put the people off the bus, you can't do this or you can't do that, they're in an office somewhere. They're not on this bus. They're not out here driving. They go home every night safe because they behind a locked door somewhere in a building. We're not. We are really not at all. And it's just not right. It's not right. Most people are afraid of management. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of this, afraid of that. Because we can get attacked, and at the end of the day, we could get suspended until further investigation or whatever. And that's not right. The customer is not always right. Especially when you let these people live at your station that you done spent all these millions of dollars to build. It was beautiful when I started. It was beautiful out there. I started when they first opened up the station. It was nice. But now you go down there, it smells like urine, it smells like God knows what. People smoking on the platforms all the time, they ODing in the bathrooms, all kinds of stuff. And if nobody's gonna step in I guess that'll be okay because everybody that get top pay, get all the money, gonna be sitting in the office somewhere going home every day to their wife and husband. It's not safe out there. It's not safe. I don't care if you spend millions of dollars on gas. If you don't spend it, you spend it on buses. We don't have enough buses. We barely can get to these routes to get all this extra stuff. You got all these buses running every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, but nobody can get to them because we don't have enough shuttle cars, we don't have enough buses, and we don't have enough people. And it's always gonna be that way until people stop being afraid. Until people stop being afraid, it's not gonna matter. But at the end of the day, as long as Bucks are getting in the seat, I guess it's okay for the city of Raleigh. Y'all take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Ms. Mangum, I have one question for you before. Have you seen changes since the fair? I know it's only been a couple of days, but have you seen changes since fairs have been re-implemented?
A little bit, no more than them spending the extra $2 every day to go get another. They get they pass all over again because they lost it for $2. Then they get back on the bus and sleep all day. It's just not really,
Okay, thank you.
not really.
So we're gonna have those questions deferred to management when it comes to time for them to present. So hopefully you guys have some answers or some feedback for Ms. Mangum when that time comes. Can we move to Finance Committee? Or So we're going to modify the schedule just a little bit due to interest of time. We're going to come back to system bus maps, but we're going to let finance to report out so we can vote on some action items. Thank you.
Okay, the Finance and Policy Committee meeting was last week, and we did go over several things that I want to report out about. Election Day, it's been proposed that Election Day be fare-free, and we voted and we agree that it should be, but the City Council ultimately has to approve that. So I wanted to present that in committee we agreed that we propose Election Day be a fare-free day for all riders. And I believe that if we can vote on that today, it can then go to the City Council for their next meeting.
Since we have enough people, we are able to vote on that today. If you want to make a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we vote to approve that Election Day, November 5th, 2024, be a fare-free day in the city of Raleigh.
I second that motion.
All right. Any votes for aye?
Aye.
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 Any nays? All right, motion has been passed.
Thank you. We also heard about the Title VI service equity, and we talked about this last month, and we had approved it, but we did want to bring it forward for a vote today since we didn't get to meet last month. Just to refresh your memory, I think we've all talked about this in the past, but I wanted to just have staff bring up again what that Title VI service equity action is so that we can vote on that.
Yeah, thank you. So I think everybody at the board has been through one of these. We've done quite a few service implementations this year, so it's pretty much rubber stamped. We do a review of the services that are changing, whether that be increase or decrease in service, and we look at two items. go ahead and go to the next slide, Andrea. We look at minority populations, which is defined as any population other than white, and we look at low-income populations defined as passengers making less than $25,000 per year. And for the minority populations, we're looking for disparate impacts, and for the low-income populations, we're looking at disproportionate burdens. And so when you're doing your review, you have to determine whether the changes are a minor or a major change. And if it's a major change, then you do an analysis to see if those two categories are impacted negatively. In this case, on the next slide, it shows all of the changes that we had in September. And all of those changes were considered major changes. And on the next slide, it shows the table that displays the routes that had disparate impacts and disproportionate burdens. And so of all the changes we did, only these three, Route 13, Route 22, and the 401X up in Rollsville had the disparate impacts and disproportionate burdens. The 401X only had the disparate impact. So what that means is for those that meet one or another of those two categories negatively, you do have to provide mitigations. And I believe the next slide, it shows a map of the areas. And so for Route 13, the mitigation factors are the services that were increased, not only with this same service change, but in previous service changes. We now have Route 5, Route 21, Route 19, all operating every 15 minutes, which are basically either on or surrounding the 13 Chavis Heights route. Route 20 is operating every 30 minutes, and it actually covers portions of Route 13. There's only a couple of really small segments of Route 13 that will no longer be served, and all of those are within a quarter mile of the new or existing services that we have. The next slide talks about Route 22, and similarly, Route 19 and Route 5 both have service operating at every 15 minutes. And the Route 5 actually saw some service adjustments to cover a good portion of the State Street route as it formerly operated. So there's only a couple of very small east-west sections there in southeast Raleigh that would no longer be served. And again, both of those, there's no stop that would be more than a quarter of a mile either east or west to one of those routes that are operating at least the same or a higher level of service as what they were provided before. And then the next slide talks about mitigation strategies for the 401X. This one's a little bit different because it was a fixed route service operating only in the peak hours. I believe it did 3 a.m. trips and 3 p.m. trips connecting Roseville down to Triangle Town Center. That route never really performed as it was hoped that it would. So it is transitioning over to microtransit. And instead of 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. trips, there'll be 2 buses up there or 2 vans up there operating that microtransit from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. at night. So quite a bit of additional service being provided up there to provide them a much higher level of service than what the 401X was providing. And so this just shows a recap that there were disproportionate and disparate impacts due to these changes, but the service increases that were implemented along with the reductions of service and previous routes that have come online over the past year, all of those provided mitigating circumstances for those service changes. And the next slide just shows the staff recommendation. The Finance and Policy Committee did vote to move this forward to the full board today for consideration of adoption of the Title VI analysis that was done for this service change.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions about that? Okay. Madam Chair, I propose that we approve the staff recommendations and our committee's recommendation.
Anyone want a second?
I'll second that.
All right. So there's been a motion on the floor. Ayes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. The motion's been approved.
That was both of the, okay, good. Okay. Pardon me? And finally, Madam Chair, I think this can go fairly quickly. As you know, Finance and Policy talked a whole lot about bylaws all last year, and we drafted bylaws for the Raleigh Transit Authority, and those have been sent to the city attorney for their feedback. At our meeting last week, we had found a gap in something that we should have included but didn't. And so as a result of that, we drafted an addendum to the bylaws. And it's what I want to read to you what we approved. I don't want to take the time for us to vote on it today because it's just been sent to the city attorney to be included. And once the bylaws are approved from them, we will, as a body, have to come back and approve the whole thing. But I think this addresses something that one of our members brought up earlier, and that's another reason why we wanted to just be sure to include it. It regards meetings, and it's called official communications. Whenever the authority votes to send official communication to the City Council, the chair will draft such communication and submit it to all authority members for fact-checking and final approval. Upon approval, either in writing or by email from authority members, the official communication will be sent. The timeline for distribution of communication to City Council will be determined at the time the vote is taken. Basically, Madam Chair, what we are doing is trying to close that loophole that something might get missed if the chair or our authority wants to communicate to City Council, that we don't drop it or draft something that doesn't include everybody's intent. And it just gives us one last time for all of our members to fact check. So again, that has been sent with the bylaw packet to city attorney. And we will look forward to getting their feedback. But I did want to just give you up to date what we had discussed in our meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we'll have an opportunity to give feedback on what that addendum?
Absolutely, because we will have an opportunity. I suppose if anybody wants to comment today, you could, but I knew in the interest of time, it's not going to change the fact that we have included it in the bylaws. So
I just recommend when the bylaws come back that we highlight that section so we'd be all aware of that new addendum was added. Was that fair?
Well, okay, so the process, we had bylaws like months ago, right?
right?
It's now going, this board approved that version. It was sent to attorneys. What was going to happen after that? Goes to council, right?
No,
No,
the
come back
city
to
attorney will come
One
back
more
to
time back
us.
to us.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, so, all right.
We
okay.
didn't approve them, finance and policy.
Yeah.
We approved a draft to be sent.
To be sent. You approved that final draft to be sent. And this is simply an, not afterthought, but just a glaring omission on our part to fact check ourselves, to just say, we want to make sure that what gets sent as official RTA communication is in fact what we voted on. So that's why we just said, oh, if we see the whole now and they haven't even finalized their approval, let's just let them consider this as well.
Sure, okay.
Is that, any other questions about that? Right. Anyway, thank you. I just wanted to inform you guys. But that was it for our committee.
Thank you so much. Now we'll go back to system bus map update. And I think that's Sylvia.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Greer. I'm a senior transit planner on the bus and bus facilities team. One of the things that I do is collaborate with our contractor, Smart Maps, on updates to the system map as well as all the route maps. So this is an opportunity to share about that, I guess. We have a new system map that is going to be live in January, and we have decided that going forward, we're going to update the system map once a year, probably in January, which is not something that Go Raleigh's done historically, but is done by a lot of transit agencies around the country. Any questions?
Not offhand. Didn't you say the map is online right now for us to review?
Yes,
I believe.
we put the current system map in board docs that reflects the changes through September. And what we'll do is, as Sylvia mentioned, we're only going to do that update once a year. But there were some suggestions that came out of route and then went through marketing for, changes. We've made those changes. So if anybody wanted to fact check that text and those items, it's on board docs for your review. And if you have comments, please get those back to us. And before we do our print in January, we'll try to get those updated.
Thank you. I definitely like the yearly idea because some of the maps have been a little bit outdated. So I appreciate that. And you and your team. Leo, you have a question?
Well, the bus, just remind me, the bus map is used for what? As in, like, you got the print version of it, and what else?
The system map?
What we're talking, the system bus map, yeah.
It's just historically, we've always had the print copies of individual routes available and a color copy of the entire system. That's just kind of a standard thing that most transit agencies have.
So it's the system and the individual routes?
It shows every route in the city.
So we're talking about the big one with all the
all
routes,
40
right?
routes.
Okay, cool. So mid-year updates still get fed into like the apps and all the technology.
Yes, the apps are updated
stuff.
3 times a year.
3 times a year.
But the system app is expensive to update and print.
Right. Okay.
It's very large.
That's kind of where I was going.
And
at.
full
Okay.
color.
Yeah,
So there's still a way to see the
Yes.
most up to date.
Yeah,
stuff.
any service changes are immediately made to transit apps, Google Maps, our own brochures for that individual map. It's just the system map that we're going to reserve to change those only once a year.
Sure. Makes sense. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Those big color maps are really expensive to print.
All right. Next up, marketing chair discussion. We don't have a presentation on that, but so basically the marketing chair position is open. So if anybody on the board would like to step up and fill that spot, it is open. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So if anybody's, no pressure today, but feel free to think about it. Flip a coin, no pressure. Think about it till 5 o'clock. I'm just joking.
Yeah, I think Jen was very open to just delaying that until next month, unless somebody just wants to volunteer.
We'll delay it.
I second delaying it.
All right, so we'll just, what happened? No? Okay, joking? Okay. We'll carry this conversation on to next month. All right, next up is Route Committee, me. Micro Transit update, I think, Melanie, were you doing that one? Some exciting news happening in Roseville.
Afternoon, everybody. Melanie Roush, Senior Transit Planner on the Bus and Bus Facilities team, although perhaps we should put microtransit in that name title now. This is just a quick reminder that the Roseville Microtransit, branded to be MicroLink, I presented it probably maybe in our last meeting, actually, come to think of it, at RTA. That implementation date is now September 16th, which is Monday. The 401X, it is replacing the 401X service. So the final 401X will drive tomorrow. And then as of Monday, we will transition over to that microlink service. So this is the current map. Wake Forest is also moving over to a microtransit service. So the Wake Forest loop will be retired October 1st. And then there will be kind of 2 microtransit service zones that interact quite a bit. So does anybody have any questions about that changeover or the new service?
I don't have any question, but it's exciting. Roseville did put out a updated Facebook page highlighting that, so
Yes,
we
they were very
appreciate other
fast.
towns highlighting the things that we're doing, get the word out, so.
Yes, and just for you guys' knowledge, on September 16th at 2 p.m., we will do a maiden voyage. That is kind of an RSVP only event because the microtransit vehicles by nature are a little small. So that'll be with some of the town commissioners of the town of Rolesville to help kind of drum up some of that excitement about the new service.
All right. Are there any questions about the microtransit?
Has the fare been determined for the microtransit system?
So we talked about it in a prior meeting. However, we do have some logistical challenges on figuring out how to charge a fare and how to integrate it into the rest of our fixed route network. We also do not have any sort of infrastructure on the vehicles to accept fare payment. So we're running the first year as a pilot program, similar to what the town of Wake Forest is doing, and also the Northeast Smart Ride as we figure out a path forward for charging fares.
So they will be free for the passengers currently?
Until June 2025, through the pilot period.
Thank you.
The Wake Transit Plan is studying microtransit kind of as a whole, and that's one of the things they'll be looking at, how services interact with each other, and branding, in addition to many other things in that Wake Transit Plan update.
Thank you. Return to fairs update, Andrea.
Good afternoon, Andrea Epstein. I believe all of you have heard this presentation already, so I'm going to run through it pretty quickly, but our numbers are quite impressive. As of the end of August, right before fairs started, we had over 9,000 people signed up for one form or another of our passes. We reached out to the COCs and worked with them and hosted a training on July 17th with over 45 people attending, with a request from all the COCs of 2,500 cards to hand out, and all of those were dropped off before the month of August when we were practicing our pass. Some of the communications we have done is community engagement events where we went to the station every day the week before, at the beginning of August, and the end of August for a whole week. Staff was out there signing up people. On top of that, we did 21 outreach events beginning in June when council decided to bring back fairs. Our communications plan was created in partnership with council, the TPAC, and Go Triangle. And here are some of the paid outlets that we've also used with our communications plan. So that was a quick overview. Does anybody have any questions about our return to fairs?
I don't have anything, but I just say if we continue to promote our programs, let them know, and then continue letting know about the passes and the different options to pay on the bus. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the next one is mine, Route 12. Oh, Melly, come on, assist me. I don't mind help. The Route 12 FY25 alignment change, and this is an action item, so if we can, yeah. So
Yes.
Melly, back to you.
Okay, so we have some FY25 changes coming for Route 12. Right now, they're currently scheduled to be an increase in weekday span from 5:45 a.m. to 10:30 or The current span is 5:45 a.m. to 10:30 p.m., and the new span will be 5:45 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. This is to be in alignment with the goals of the Wake Transit Plan. So another big change coming in FY25 is Route 11 will be increased to 15-minute frequency. That will be implemented in January. So what we wanted to talk about today a little bit is just how the 12 interacts with the 11 and the 11L, kind of in that Avon Ferry Gorman area. In this map, you can see, so part of the proposal for FY25 is the 11L will be truncated and end at Gorman and Avon Ferry intersection where that food line is on Avon Ferry, if you're aware of that area. Currently, the 11L does run all the way into NC State campus. It mirrors what the 11 does all up on Avon Ferry Road up into the NCSU campus. The map you're looking at right now is how it's proposed to look in FY25. However, we wanted to talk a little bit about perhaps exploring an alignment change for the 12 today. So we went over this in greater detail during the route committee meeting. However, we wanted to propose possibly extending the 12 to better meet the 11L and the 11 at Avon Ferry Gorman. Currently, it's about a third of a mile between the two. And this would just bring the 12 all the way down and allow the 11L to have transfer opportunity and really minimize that walking in between routes. We did go out and drive it. This was the result is the route path you're seeing after driving it and testing a few different possibilities. This is what operations determined would be the best route path moving forward. Not a huge impact to the existing route. Only 2 bus stops would have to be removed, but we would pick up a whole bunch of additional bus stops, and both of them were within about 0.2 miles of where the bus stop will be removed is within 0.2 miles of another bus stop, so a relatively short walk. Okay.
Any questions about this route potential change? I would just say the route committee is for this project because one, we're again want to create connectivity and less movement for going back downtown. So this actually creates a new opportunity to go part of west of Raleigh and into the Cary area eventually. But
we'll talk about that next.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next. Talking too much.
It is budget neutral.
Yes. So it's a minor change, like Melanie mentioned. It's only 2 stops that have been removed, but also the Wolf Line already covers that area, so it's not a displacement to any riders at all.
If we approve it, would it take place, when would it take effect?
It would take effect in most likely May of 2025 when we go ahead and implement those route changes, the span changes we're planning on implementing already.
And we said if we do this change, there will be no impact to state students because they'll be out of school. So when we make the change, it'll be new to them when they come back. Any questions? I make a motion that we approve the change for Route 12.
I second.
Any ayes?
Ayes.
Nays? Love it. Great. Approved. All right. Doing Western? Okay. Next up, Western Raleigh Rideshare.
Okay. So in a prior route committee meeting, we talked extensively about looking at the future of Western Raleigh, and there has been requests from the RTA board a couple times to really look at exploring options for better connections in Southwest Raleigh. And when we talk about that, we're really thinking about Southwest Raleigh going into Cary and getting access to sort of that Cary Crossroads area. Tryon Road has always been specifically mentioned as well as an area that needs access. So we're going to talk about multiple scenarios that could lead to better exploration of a change in kind of route alignment for the Southwest Raleigh area. Okay, so as you all may know, we have been undergoing a microtransit plan for the city of Raleigh, and they divvied up the recommendations into 3 categories. The first category is short-term changes that we could make, and those short-term changes are really budget neutral. So that means we wouldn't have to find funding to implement a microtransit zone. And one of the zone recommendations made was to replace the current 27 with a microtransit zone. So this is the zone that was proposed. And this just has kind of the route stats. I wanted to put it up here so that everybody could look at it, but I can go back in a little while as we discuss further the current 27 ridership and its kind of statistics. Okay, so this on the screen, the green route is our Route 27. That is really what it's going to look like in FY25. Just a reminder, in FY25, we will be removing Route 26 due to extremely low performance. And that part of the 27 will be realigned to pick up some of the service that the 26 formerly provided. And the 4 is also going to be realigned at that Durley and Edwards Mill intersection, and it will provide the northern half of the current 26 route. It'll provide service along that corridor. Currently, the 27 is a 30-minute all-day service. According to the Wake Transit Plan, a 30-minute all-day service should average about 15 boardings per revenue hour. Our current performance for that route is about 2.5 to 3 boardings per revenue hour, which is really, really lower than what we would like to see. Our goal is also $10 per boarding, and the route currently is not meeting that metric at all, and we're averaging $40 per boarding, so that's pretty high. And then that route costs approximately $1.2 million to operate. So in this next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about ridership along the 27. This is something that was specifically requested after we went through this in Route Committee. So we visualized some of the ridership activity along our Route 27, and I actually removed Route 27 from this map so that you could kind of see what other routes are already existing in the area and what other kind of service opportunities there already are. So you can see that the highest ridership along Route 27 is in this Rex Hospital area, up near Crabtree Mall, up here on Blue Ridge and at Crabtree Mall. There's a little bit here by the Ramada on Blue Ridge Road. And then there's quite a bit along the Western Boulevard corridor. So what you can see in this map is most of the areas where the ridership is are being covered by other routes. The only substantial or somewhat substantial ridership area that would be dropped if we were to remove service from the 27 completely would be that North Carolina Museum of Art area. However, the proposal is not to remove the 27. The proposal is to implement a microtransit zone instead of our Route 27. So it's not to say that you couldn't have access to public transit at the North Carolina Museum of Art. You definitely could. It would just be in the form of microtransit service. So that's a little bit about that. Does anybody have any questions kind of about microtransit, how it works, how it differs from fixed route? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. How would that work? And does microtransit allow for someone who wants to take their bike to NCMA and then go cycling?
That's a good question that I haven't thought about. I don't think we have current bike compatibility with because we use the same vans as the Go Raleigh Access vans. So that would be something that would be lost, would be the ability to bring a bike on board with the microtransit service. Something that would be gained, however, is now you aren't restricted to the prefixed route of Route 27. So this would open up service to a much larger area and a much larger group of people.
How would someone access it? How would someone say,
How would somebody
I want to go there?
Yes. So microtransit is generally you use an app. It's app-based. It's very similar to Uber if you've used Uber before or Lyft. You open the app, you say where you want to go within the app, and it almost instantly matches you with a ride, and it gives you an estimated timeline of when the ride will be there. They're usually there's a lot of KPIs involved in microtransit, but the average wait time is usually around 10 minutes. So generally speaking, that tends to be shorter than a lot of Go Raleigh fixed route services. And then the bus comes, you get on, it may or may not be a shared ride, so that it does maximize efficiency by matching trips together that are close to each other, much like Uber Pool worked, if you remember the days of Uber Pool. And then it gets you to your destination and you get off. So it's pretty simple, but it is different than a fixed route that runs on a prefixed schedule. Yeah. And on my next slide, I did want to provide some statistics for you all to look at so you can compare kind of what different areas and demographics are served by the different routes. So on the left-hand side, you can see that is the 27 microtransit zone statistics. So that serves a population of about 26,000 people. And it provides service to about 26,500 jobs. So what the current 27 provides is that population area that has access to the 27 is about 9,400. And then it provides access to about 18,300 jobs. And then there's a whole bunch of other statistics we could go through if you would like to. Okay.
And this wasn't an action item, this was just to bring it forward. So we're
Yes.
looking at other areas of microtransit, but this is one of the big ones. I think we're going to talk about maybe implementing next year. But since the ridership is low, this might be a good idea for this particular area to do microtransit, but still looking for feedback and
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it might, work and what numbers it would produce. But it's, I guess my knee-jerk reaction is to be a little skeptical because while it's like one zone of Raleigh, people live there, but they might do things in a lot of different other areas, so they might have to use it as a transfer anyway. That might be good, that might be bad, I don't know. Versus the microtransit you just mentioned about in like Roseville, where maybe like the whole town is serviced by microtransit, right? So I don't know, curious to see how people actually use it. On paper, it makes sense.
yeah.
So we'll track and see how people use it and revisit it in the future, right? Yeah.
And we definitely make sure that the app prioritizes taking the bus whenever possible. So you do see some overlapping of, areas that are currently served by fixed route. And so the app won't necessarily let you take a ride on microtransit if you could do the same thing on a bus that's coming within the same time. So they are very sensitive to make sure we're not kind of working against each other. But another factor to consider when we discuss possibly converting the 27 to microtransit is it does open up some opportunities to look at a realignment of the 11L, and that is when we could potentially look at what options we could provide to serve that Southwest Raleigh kind of Cary Crossroads connection. So the 11L is also proposed to receive some pretty major alignment changes in FY25. On this map, you can see the green line is the existing 11L bus route. And then the red line is what it is proposed to change to in FY25. So you see that it is truncated. That means we kind of cut the route off at the Avon Ferry Gorman intersection where that food lion is. And then we also remove service from the northeastern part of the route, the western side that is the northeastern part of the loop on the 11L. So considering such a large realignment is proposed, we wanted to think about what are more creative ways that we could potentially serve Raleigh. So one of the possible proposals that we have looked into, and this would kind of be a separate item, but we don't want to kind of spring it on you guys, so we want to present it now, would be potentially looking into an 11L route that could run part of that Avon Ferry corridor that it's currently serving that does have very high ridership, and then potentially look at a possible route to go into the Cary area, serve at Crossroads, and then also provide a connection to the Wake Med campus off of Kildare Farms Road, and the Walmart kind of terminate over there in the Cary area. So all things to think about as we think about a possible 27 microtransit zone. Yes.
Just one question. So when you're mentioning maybe going into Cary, the Crossroad area, Crossroads, is that near like Kate Boo Avenue and all of the
Yes.
all of those shops and
Yes. That is, if you see this golden loop with the blue line running right through it, Kate Boo is the blue line running through it. Yeah. So it's a very large employment center. That's really all I had, and this isn't an action item, so
Yes.
any remaining questions, please feel free to ask, but also don't feel like you have to make a motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the next one was, oh, we're going to go down, okay. Yes. I guess we can skip to this one because I know some people have to leave too. Is that the routes that run on South Street? Is it 21 and 11 run on South Street? Yes. Okay.
South Street.
Okay. The numbers threw me off. Okay. So, how can I put this? This is really an action item, not really an action item, but this is just making us aware about the Red Hat Amphitheater and the potential closure of South Street and how it impacts Go Raleigh. We are adaptable to change. So when there's construction, we work around it. If South Street is closed, we do have a plan in place. I think we're going to present that. So Dana, I'll stop talking and let you do that.
You're good
But
if you want.
we do have a plan in place. We do have some questions about the potential plan. But again, this is only contingent upon if Red Hat moves. And again, it's not really an action item, but this is just making us, the board, aware. Go ahead, Dana.
All right, I'm Dana Smith. I'm the transportation supervisor for Bus and Bus Facilities team. This is the current route we use for Route 11 and 21. Right now, it currently runs down West Lenora and west to east South Street. So this is for the South Street expansion project. This is where the Red Hat Amphitheater will be relocated. And so we have two potential project detours. One will be rerouting 11 and 21 down the street right before the actual construction. And the other one will be the NCDOT slip lane connector, which has not been approved yet, but hopefully will be. This is the proposed reroute. As you can see, it takes us, I believe that's West Street, right before the construction. And then we will have to reposition one of our stops, move it slightly to the left so we can pick that stop up before we cut up to the reroute street of West Street. This is the proposed change for NCDOT. This is the next slide I'll show you will show you the detour of the slip lane or that it provides, but this is the initial draw up of the slip lane itself. And this is the reroute with the slip lane.
Any questions about that? So one of the questions we brought up en route is, with South Street potentially be closing, will Lenore Street be closed? And I don't think that's been a conversation or question that has been brought up with this whole Red Hat Amphitheater being moved, but we're just putting it out there, is making sure if that question is being answered or should be answered, will Lenore Street be closed? And I think today it's closed during concert season off and on. It's being used as a throughway. So yeah, going forward, how would that look? How would we be impacted? The slip lane is an option. It's not a cost to Go Raleigh because we can't afford it. So, but that would be a cost upon City of Raleigh and DOT to create that, build that. I don't know how that will work interchangeably. Hopefully it'd be timely with the construction. It'd be ready, but there is a light right there because if you're coming down McDowell, that's a fast change from 65 to 35. So it has to be a stoplight right there to allow traffic to make that loop right there. But David, I'll let you. interject?
So one of the questions that was brought up at Route was, will Lenore Street remain open? So the answer to that is yes. Lenore Street will remain open. Will Lenore Street close during events? That's not been 100% determined yet. It very well could be closed off during events, and it very well could be, it could remain open. We don't have a clear answer on that yet. What we ask for, maybe if you can go to the next slide, at the committee, the next one I think says the options, yeah. Was just for the Transit Authority to consider the two options that were presented. You know, the first one was to reroute 1121 onto West Street and use Lenore, which is probably the detour that we would have to use initially if this move happens and South Street is approved to be closed. That has not been determined yet. That will go to City Council, I believe, maybe next week or at their next session. So we'll know more on whether this is needed or not at that time. But the initial option would be west and use Lenore. It basically just moves both routes up one block on their inbound trips. And then the second option would be to use that new connector street between Dawson and McDowell if it were to, be approved by NCDOT and actually get constructed. I think operationally, the quickest, easiest thing and the least impact would be for us to use that connector lane if it were to get built. But staff-wise, we could do either one very easily operationally and without any major impacts to the service.
And currently, right now, there's construction going on South Street now due to the building, so they're doing reroutes currently, right?
Yeah, that's a little bit, it's a block further west than what this potential closure would be at. But yes, we do take that detour occasionally due to that construction of that new apartment complex.
Any questions, Leo?
I mean, it sounds like you have, because there might be a scenario where South Street closes for construction and the slip lane hasn't been delivered yet. That has to be built too. So you have an option one to do it. So if option two presents itself in the future, is that the preferred option, I guess? Or are you asking us?
I think that would be least impactful to the service.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
But either way, it's going to be very minimal impact for Go Raleigh.
Sure, okay.
I have a question, Chair. So our decision, or at least approval, would center around hypothetical situations if I got you.
This is why I said it's really not an action item. It's more opinion options. But
We were just asked to bring this to the authority for review and consideration, and just to make sure that, either one of those options would be okay to move forward if Red Hat does get approved and moves and South Street were to be closed, are we good with either one of these two options? And the staff recommendation to that question would be yes.
I've heard several community members spark concern around the closure of the street. Are we still collecting the community's concerns around the street closure as well?
Yeah, the city actually had an evening meeting. I believe it was on Monday night. I was there. I can't remember what day it is. But they had a Saturday event 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then they had this other event on, I believe it was Monday night. And they've collected quite a bit of information that is being forwarded to the city council members for their review for when the time comes to make that determination on which way to go. Yeah, this vote, if you take the vote, has nothing to do with what happens with Red Hat, what happens with South Street. It's if that street closes, what are we going to do? We've got two options. At some point in time, we'll make a decision which one to make the permanent route change to.
Any questions? Do I have enough for a vote? Yes. So I make a motion that we approve the options that we have for rerouting 11 and 21, as well as option 2 for DOC and NCDOT slip lane connector with the caveat of getting confirmation on the status of the North Street closure, but you said it's not, but that's the motion.
I second it.
All right, we have a second. Vote, any ayes?
Aye.
Any nays? All right, and the action has been approved. All right, thank you, Dana. Are we doing the FY '25 or? Yep, thank you. I think we had a few more for route, but mine's is quick. It's just about the bus shelter construction. Let's see, what do we have for that? So basically for the construction, I'll just do a brief notes on that. We had set 7 from July 2023 to June 24. We had 8 sets completed. Right now, we're into set 8, starting in April of 2024. We are projected 49 standard shelters or sets and 44 shelters. Right now, probably has changed, but the last notes was 14 out of the 49s have been completed. Sarah is actually working on that, and also we're working on changing all of the signs, hopefully, to be complete by the end of the year. I'm gonna say end of the year. All right, end of the year. To change the Go Raleigh signs from, no, the cat to Go Raleigh, and also updating the text from Go Live to Go to just Raw. Whenever you want to text and call and find out the status of the buses, we're updating the text changes on the signs. And I think that's all we have. I think Melanie covered most of all the system changes and updates, so we'll go on to marketing. So Byron?
All right, for our marketing, at our last meeting last week, we had discussed some of the metrics that had come through for August. I mean, this on the what's available, it has both August and July. And kind of some of the metrics that we saw was based off of Go Raleigh, some of the social media traffic that, one of the ways that traffic can look at it is basically once we made the announcement to start returning the fares, it definitely looked like we had, some increase or some steady increase, and then and then it kind of dropped off. I think some of that reflects that a lot of people seem to know about the return of fares actually before we actually started returning the fares, which means that people did a good job with getting that information out, marketing it through all the social media. And it looks like, the mentions started going up on Instagram. Looks like the impressions went up on Instagram between July and August from 29,000 impressions to 83,000. That may reflect even some of the ridership of a younger population. I know I get laughed at my age if I'm on Facebook and not Instagram. But it looks like towards the end, once we have, we'll probably know more once we have some data after return affairs. But it looks like everyone did a good job, even with paid advertising. In July was 424,000 impressions from paid Facebook advertising, and by August 31st, it was 742,000. Meaning that, again, just kind of correlates, everyone did an excellent job with getting the information out. And we did have a kind of total number of subscribers have stayed around the same, floating around 6,900 throughout the months of June, July, and August. And also the web page views seem to kind of be stable. Like, so it looks like we have the same amount of people we had web page views of 16,000 as of July 31st and 13,800 as of August 31st. And the unique web page views were also 13,500 in July and 12,700 in August. So we had some good uptick before we returned to fairs, so the information got out. People now know it, so it is still, and then it's just kind of plateaued to where it looks like we're still having a good number of people engaged. And that covers those are for both July and August. And then we also had our FY25 marketing plan. Is that where we're at now? So the FY 2025 marketing plan update is that, for first quarter, we'll be looking at return to fairs and returning to the busopoly. It's also part of the marketing plan update. I think we have tabled to nominate a chair for the marketing committee till the next meeting. That's kind of my portion. Is that correct? Perfect. Excellent. All right. Now it's time to do some sizzle reel.
Andrea Epstein. So this is our latest video for Go Raleigh, and it kind of describes the awards we've won this past year. And we will be releasing it. It is on YouTube already. So that is our latest video that we are going to start showcasing next week during Tri-Transit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Anderson. I am one of the program coordinators for the Transportation Demand Management Program, Commute Smart Raleigh. Mason was supposed to give this presentation, but he had to step out, so I am stepping in his place. And we just wanted to give y'all a very brief overview of a couple of the programs that we have done the last few months. So in case you're not familiar with what we do, our main goal is to promote and support and encourage and educate folks about alternate forms of transportation. And we do that in a variety of different ways, and we try to do a lot of different outreach to a lot of different groups in the community. And one of them that we did this year was the second iteration of our Commute Smart Ambassador Academy. And what it is a summer academy for 6 middle school aged kids between the ages of 13 and 15. And we complete a full immersive program with them about transportation. And we go through a variety of topics, including how to take the bus, the Youth Go Pass, which was new this year because we didn't do it last year. We take them on a bike ride. We show them how to take the bus if they've never taken the bus before. We teach them about the history of transportation design and transit design and transit planning, among other things. Upon successful completion of the program, they graduate and they get to take home a bicycle that we provide with them. And it's brand new, it's fitted to them, and they're free to keep it for the rest of however long it lasts. The goal is to create a network of young people that can go and influence their peers in their communities to do the same thing and to try taking the bus to school, riding their bike to school, walking wherever they can, and influence their peers in school, church, their families, their communities, their friends, whomever, to support these habits long term and to build this mindset early on before they reach driving age and they automatically start driving once they get their license. That's the goal of the program. This was the second iteration of it this year, and it was quite successful. We get a lot of positive feedback from both participants and parents, and we have city staff come and give presentations throughout the week, and they learn a lot of different varieties of topics, and we had a lot of fun this year, and it went very well. I believe we have a picture. This is our graduating class this year. Those are the bicycles that we gifted them upon completion. Yeah, it was very successful, and we got a lot of really positive feedback and commentary. And then our second thing that we just wanted to highlight is our recap of Bike Month 2024. If you're unaware, May is National Bike Month, and Commute Smart Raleigh has historically done a month-long campaign for Bike Month that involves quite a few events and initiatives. These include things like our annual Bike Bonanza, a bike webinar, Bike to Work Day, a bike mural, and the production of a Bike Month t-shirt, among a few other things. Here are some photos. The image on the left is a mural that we commissioned a local artist to do. This building faces Crabtree Creek Greenway, and so it is accessible to cyclists, and it is a bike-themed piece of art. It's really beautiful. If you're ever on the Greenway, I highly encourage you to go see it. It's close to New Bern Avenue on that side of the Crabtree Creek Greenway. And the image on the right is the graphic design that was on our Bike Month t-shirt this year. We, again, solicited a local artist to design it and had that printed on, I believe, 300-400 t-shirts that we handed out at different events in the community, not just Bike Month events, but any event that we attended. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We just want to give y'all a brief highlight of a couple of the things that we completed this year in Commute Smart.
Thank you. Good job. Any questions? Anything else, Byron?
No.
All right. Any questions for marketing? All right. Thank you. Good job, marketing. Keep it up. Next, we have the general manager's report.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Andrews. I'm the Deputy General Manager for Go Raleigh RIPT Dev. Tanya Dupree, who's our General Manager, does send her apologies today. Fortunately, we were both. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We were both at union negotiations, and so we decided to split the difference. And so I got selected to come before you all today. However, she does send her apologies, and she looks forward to seeing your smiling faces on next month when she gets her opportunity to present. So one of my operators, Ms. Davina, did come, and she gave her comments. Ms. Davina, I appreciate her doing that and kind of bringing it to the forefront. However, these are issues that we have heard about. She is on light duty right now. Unfortunately, she did have an incident that was not her fault, but she is one of our operators. I'll take an opportunity just to talk about a couple of things that she did mention, right? The first one being vehicles. You know, absolutely, we are a TP Dev, as well as the city, definitely understand that we have issues with some of our vehicles, right? You know, some of them are old, right? And we understand that. Like us, you know, I won't use the term old, but those 40 pluses, you know, when we get up in the morning, I say we're seasoned saints, you know, those buses, they do get testy, right? They get tested in the winter, they get tested in the summer, and sometimes they will take a sick day, right? But Ben and his team, however, they do a pretty good job, who's our maintenance director, at keeping those buses up. We have meetings weekly with David, and we have identified, I guess, some fundings, and we're going to be getting some new vehicles. So they are coming online. We do know that COVID has put that kind of behind in terms of being able to get that. We can't go to a bus lot, pick out what we want. Unfortunately, as we order them, they're kind of made to order, right? So we do have some coming online, but the ones we do have, we do our best in trying to keep those up. However, some days it can be a struggle, right? We understand that, but we do the best we can in making sure that our operators have vehicles so that we are able to put the service on the street and keep the service moving. As far as the recruitment piece, absolutely. I've been in transit for 18 years. This is probably the worst I've ever seen it, right? Just because we understand that if you have kids or this newer generation, I like to call it, it just has been a changing of the guard. All right, we understand that if you go, to the west or to the east of us, and you talk to some of our, big brothers and big sisters, they're dealing and struggling with the same issue, right? We're not immune. Unfortunately, people in this region have a lot of options, right? We have a bunch of transit systems here, which kind of makes our market unique. So people have a lot of options. The other piece is, bus driving and truck driving is just not, I tell people all the time, it's just not sexy to these kids now. They don't want to drive a bus, right? So a lot of the old timers, have kind of gotten out of this, and we find it hard, right, to recruit the young people, which is why I love to see the program where they're in the school systems now, teaching these kids about these transit jobs and these transit careers, because you can, come out of school, particularly, if you don't know what you want to do, get into transit, get your CDL, all right, and you can actually have a nice, decent living and career. I'll tell you that not only myself as well as RAPT Dev, we're doing a lot right now just around recruiting. They're throwing all their resources at it, local and corporate. I know next weekend we were able to partner with the city of Raleigh, so we're going to be taking advantage of the job fair that's coming online. We're going to be representing out there. We're reaching out to our NC Works as well as the local reentry council right now and getting those guys that are, kind of coming out of the judicial system to try and get them CDLs, because, we understand that that's an untapped market right now. We're looking at even going into the Hispanic community, because we understand that's a community that's kind of untapped, that's not really thinking about bus operators. We're working with our local ATU as well as putting together a mentorship program, because we understand that a lot of people that do get involved in this industry, bus driving and this job is tough. Next to police officers, we just had a meeting the other day with RPD, and they talked about how their officers are stressed out. We understand bus operating is the same way. We know that a lot of times when they go to the terminal, it's kind of a shock to them when they go down there, when they see so many people, right, riding the bus. And a lot of people think they want to do this job, but they really don't. It really takes a special kind of person and people who really have that, what I call a servant's heart, right, to really kind of do this job. And so a part of that is when we bring people into our mentorship program, our apprenticeship program, we really kind of bring them on day one. They'll get a mentor from the start, and that person will kind of walk with them through the process for the first 18 months, right? Another piece of the apprenticeship program is that it offers a lot of benefits to those individuals who may have been thinking about transit and get involved in transit. What happens is it opens up a lot of benefits to them, particularly for our military guys who are getting out, who we've kind of had a struggle in getting those guys to come and do this job. However, what will happen now, they will actually get an $1,800 stipend on what they're already making. We'll get reimbursements for a lot of the training and stuff that we're doing. It opens up benefits to help people who have those barriers like childcare and transportation. All those things that we're thinking about now, just trying to reach out and get people interested in these transit careers. So we definitely understand there's a shortage, right? And we're just trying to work through that the best way we can. She also talked about just the cleanliness. Yeah, we understand with so many people coming through the terminal, yes, sometimes it can be tough to keep the place clean, right? But we do have a facilities team. We looked at moving away from, we were getting the terminal power wash once a month. So now we brought all that in-house. We purchased our own pressure washer. So now you see a lot more cleaning weekly going on at the terminal. We're looking at doing some sidewalk repairs as well as some striping down there just to brighten the place up. We're looking at doing some signage just to kind of make sure that, when people come through there, they feel safe, they at least feel clean, just so we're addressing those issues. And the last one is safety, which is huge for us. Not only locally, but we understand nationally. You've seen a lot of stuff in the news, particularly around operator assaults, right? We tell our operators the first line of defense is themselves, right? So what we're doing is I'll introduce Mr. Mike Ballin and have him come up in a second. But he's our new security director, just because we understand that, safety is a big thing for us. If operators feel unsafe, that could be a part of the thing that drives them away and make them not want to do this job. So Mike has done a really good job, and he'll talk about some of the initiatives that we're doing and working with RPD, working with some of our Raleigh ambassadors, as well as our Capitol Police, and some of the things that we're doing to try and put some things in place. In addition to that, I was talking about our operators. We're putting together de-escalation training, right? Because we understand that, operators, when they're on the bus, we want to make sure that whenever operators are having issues, that we're not what I call self-inflicted wounds, right? We're doing everything we can to de-escalate. Sometimes operators, when you've been working for a while, we want them to get away from that "this is my bus" mentality, right? We want to make sure that we're going through the process, right? We want to make sure that if it ends up on the news, we're in a position 100% where we can defend the operator, and then we'll make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to do. All right? So I'll go through the presentation. I'll give Michael an opportunity to come up. He'll talk through some of the safety things that we're doing, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those at the end of my presentation. So we had a pretty good month for July. Our preventable accidents were down. Of course, we have a pretty robust safety program. Any operator that's involved in the accident or incident when it's preventable, we try and put them back through training. We do our best to make sure the operators are prepared, but we do understand that accidents do happen, particularly with a lot of new operators coming through. Raleigh is a big city. We have a lot of tight turns, and sometimes they do go through with that 40-foot bus. Sometimes they bump things, right? So we do have accidents on occasions, but for the most part, the accidents or the preventable accidents was low, as well as injuries. Our active operators per month for July was 212, right? We're looking to try and get to 230. We understand that sometimes it is a challenge. However, we do the best we can in trying to recruit. But we also want to focus on the retainment piece. I know Andrew talked about, next week is going to be operator or Treasurer Appreciation Week. We're really pumping a lot of resources in that to really make that fun for our operators, because we understand that, operators want to come to work and they want to feel appreciated. So we're really kind of throwing the kitchen sink, everything into it to really kind of make them feel wanted with prizes. We're going to feed them. We're going to do a whole bunch of stuff to really kind of make them feel appreciated. And not only that, through the years, we're looking at doing some things around wellness, because we understand that, driving is more than just, coming in and butts in the seats every day. We're human, we're people. Mentally, it can be exhausting. Sometimes physically, it can be exhausting, and we're really kind of pouring a lot of resources into that. Monthly missed trips, you can see in July, we were pretty good. We were under 150. A lot of those are still attributed to just because we just don't have operators. And if you can see the chart here on the right-hand side, most of our missed trips were because of no operators for the most part, so we're trying to address that issue. On-time performance, again, for July was at 82%. Of course, our goal is 85%. So we continue to try and work towards that to try and get the buses on time. Some of that, of course, is the new operators. We also identify other issues around clever devices and maybe some of the stops that you all know if you're coming down to 70 and you look at the Raleigh skyline, Raleigh is exploding. So with the explosion like that, increased traffic, people. And so, our operators do a pretty good job of trying to keep the buses on time. However, our goal is 85%, but sometimes we do come up a little bit short. PMs, talked earlier about, sometimes our buses get testy. Ben and those guys do a really good job trying to stay on top of those just to make sure that, the PMs are done, to make sure the buses are on the street, making sure that we're operational, just so we can kind of keep that service out there. Verified complaints, again, it was pretty low for the month of July. We were at 20, a lot of those around missed trips, missed stops, some driver errors, and of course safety concerns, which is all areas that we're focusing on and continue to focus on monthly. And I will let my Assistant General Manager, Triska Amadi, come up and talk about the paratransit piece, and then I'll give Mike Ballard an opportunity to introduce himself just to talk about some of the other safety initiatives that we're doing here.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so for the month of July, we have here the expenditures and what was spent for the taxis and what was spent for the Go Raleigh. Of course, Go Raleigh, it's been steady for the last 2 months. For the Go Access side, I think they don't have what the trips are, but the cost of the trips, this would be the average cost of what the trips are actually costing currently for the rides per trip. Then with the cancellations and no-shows, of course, we've seen an increase in that in the cancellations, which is actually good. It's actually balancing out. They're higher than the no-shows, meaning that more passengers are either canceling their trips or calling in to let us know. We try to stay on top of that to kind of prevent the no-shows so that that helps with the cost overall of the trips. And then the OTP, as for the taxis, they were at 89% overall for the month of July, and for the Go Raleigh vans, it ended out at 84%, just 1% less. It always teeters due to the fact that we do not deny any trips that come to the Go Access. So we do them whether they're late or not or rejected. We do all those trips that come to us regardless. And that's it. Any questions?
Yes. Wait a minute, hold on. I don't know if this is staff question or rep dev. Why is the van service almost 2.5 times the cost of the taxi vendors?
David, you want to take that?
That's just the structure of the system. Yeah, yeah. The taxi cost is only, the taxi cost shown on these slides is only the taxi rate. So it does, that's all it is. I can't remember what the numbers are, but they get, I think it's $4 or $3.50, to sit down, and then it's, 40 cents per tenth of a mile. So the cost you see in those charts for taxis is only that. It's just what we pay the taxi. There is a lot of administrative overhead that is built into the van cost that you see, that a lot of that overhead cost is actually spent on managing that taxi program. So you're not seeing a true dollar for taxis and a true dollar for the vans. But it is well known that the vans do cost more to operate than a taxi does. So there's no question about that. Right.
Well, I have seen the taxi vendor service has gone down. If you compare to August of '23, and the van service has doubled. And with the discussions late last year, you stated when we put more people on the vans, the cost would go down. It was $62 a trip in August of '23. It was $64 last month. So to be cost efficient and save taxpayer money, I would think that we would encourage more taxi vendor service and less van service, because the taxi vendors have decreased in the amount of trips.
Every reservation that is made, the client is asked who they would like to ride with. If they want to ride with a taxi, they tell us. They tell us which taxi. We put that in the system, and that is who they get. If they want to ride a van, we will assign them to a van. The only other trips that go to vans are when a taxi at some point during the day rejects that trip, turns it in at the last minute usually, and the vans kind of swoop in to cover that trip at the last minute. That's another reason why the van's on-time performance is a little bit lower, because when they get assigned that trip, they're already late because the taxi turned it in at the last minute. We see a lot of that later in the evenings and all weekend long. We're not pulling trips away from taxis. We're covering trips that taxis are leaving behind.
I did notice also in the information that the van service have 5 times the no-show rate as taxi vendors, which cost the city $20,000 for the month of July. The van cancellation rate is 5 times what the taxi vendor rate, no-shows, not the cancellation, excuse me, the no-shows. And that costs the city. I just wanted to point that out.
I do have a question here. Oh, he's still.
So I would think that the no-show rate probably across the system is somewhat consistent. We do have a higher rate of no-shows than most systems. We do have a very lenient policy. We try to work with our passengers to make sure that we don't penalize somebody just on a third no-show with a suspension or something like that. Everyone has a different reason that they have challenges, obviously. When it comes to the vans, I think the vans certainly at times can have challenges when they get that last-minute call. So if I'm a rider and I'm waiting for a vehicle, and that vehicle hasn't come, so I call dispatch, and they say, well, you know, that taxi's not available or that taxi's going to be late. We dispatch the van. That trip gets moved. In that interim period, I have my neighbor take me. Van shows up, person no-shows, and so that's not a true no. It's going to show up as a no-show, but a lot of times those things occur in those crisis moments. And again, I think as David stated, a lot of times our vans are dealing with crisis moments, trying to make sure that we are that safety net for the transportation network.
I have a question. One question.
Byron, hold on. Oh. Terrence has something.
My question's on a different topic, so yeah, I can give them the floor.
I just had a question just related to this. So if a taxi ride is canceled and a van has to be used, is the person charged at the taxi rate or is it a van rate? How does that work as far as like what people, they don't? Okay.
It's just the cost to the city.
The cost to the city.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Terrence.
I have a question. My first day on the Raleigh Transit Authority, it was referring to, actually we had a line of bus operators, my very first meeting. And some of the concerns that I heard today was almost exactly the same. And I don't know, it could just be me, Chair, but I don't know if I've seen any data around assaults. Have they gone down, or working condition surveys, or I personally haven't seen any data in connection to the first time I was here in the first meeting to now. Have progress increased? How are we tracking it? Where do we need the most efforts? That would be helpful to just be able to get access to some data to be able to observe some trends or anything.
Okay. Yeah, I know there is some data out there. What I will do, I'll work on getting that information for you. But I think this is a great segue kind of into introducing Mike Ballin, who's our security, who can kind of talk to some of the things that we are doing. Like I said, we did have a meeting with RPD on yesterday, just because we're looking to kind of strengthen some of those partnerships. And they do understand this. So, you know, the downtown corridor right now is some of the busiest, right? They understand, and we're in the heart of downtown, that's where we are. And so they understand that a lot of things that's going on there, a lot of those people come through the terminal, right? And so I'll give him an opportunity to kind of talk about some of the things we're doing. But this is definitely something we're aware of, and we understand that it's a major thing, and we're doing our best to address it.
Just to clarify, Terrence, are you looking data from the driver's perspective or the riders, or both?
I've only heard from the operators. I would love if there's data collected on, or even if it's a self-assessment, hey, this is what I'm seeing, or anything that will give us at least some data around the perspective, the narrative that's being provided.
In terms of what's happening across, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And good evening or good afternoon. I'm sorry, I will not keep you guys long. My name is Michael Ballin. I am a fresh new hire for the Director of Security. It's been less than 60, but almost 47 days, but I'm not counting, that I've been on the job. I actually just kind of transitioned over from Raleigh Police Department with a year gap. I say a gap year. I was there as a senior manager working in community policing out of the chief's office, working on building relationships and connecting leaders and all that other stuff. And when this opportunity was presented to me, I thought it was a really good fit for some of my skill set. With that said, I'll say that some of the things that were said up here today by the operator, I found in my first 30 days as I did an assessment that some of those things are definitely dead on. And one of the things that I started doing immediately was working on seeing how can we change their environment, you know, when it comes to Go Raleigh Station. Because I think that when people see pictures or videos of Go Raleigh, people based on their perspective kind of think what they know about what they think Go Raleigh really is. But there's some real good people that are operators. There's some real good people that take our services, but also there's some real good people who want to take our services, and that's where I come in, is trying to figure out and then problem solving, how do we make Go Raleigh, how do we make our bus service, our transit, safer for people, and making sure that we're looking at how we're keeping our operators safe as well. Because I can only imagine being a father who now have adult kids and twice over one who is sent all his kids off, trying to operate a 20, 30, 40-ton vehicle with all these people behind me who we don't really know, because all we know is they pay their fare or they get on freely, and they get on, and before you know it, that they're driving around with someone who may be thinking about self-imploding, and you have no idea, and you got to handle making sure that you're handling that bus. So some of the things that I've started doing, some of the things I've talked about, as I speak with our deputy general manager, deputy general manager, and the general manager, is building in as I'm creating this de-escalation tool in conflict management. Because what I learned and what I understand is that operators are crying for training. They're needing training so they can handle some of these situations, because the overall goal is to move people from point A to point Z and everywhere in between that. But making sure that they are safe in their operations, as well as keeping people safe there. So this meeting that I had, as I'm coordinating with Capitol as well as Raleigh PD, looking at some of those gaps or some of those bottlenecks, understanding that communication is the key. We've got to create a space, we got to create a system to where those groups are communicating on a regular basis, because when people feel like there's something that needs to be handled, and if they can't contact you, if they can't talk to you, if they cannot, pass on their information, then it's easy for misinformation or for somebody to shoot or fire off an email because they think something is happening, but they're just way out of the loop. So creating communication between all those parties, between Go Raleigh and their supervisors that are on the platform, as well as with Capitol and with RPD, is very important. Our meeting consisted of having, downtown district with their transit police, as well as captain and assistant chief, and with our GM, our assistant GM or deputy GM, and then other personnel sitting in there, just kind of talking through what that looks like. How do we create a more cohesion when it comes to our conversations and how we move? Because you believe it, it's kind of like, when somebody starts telling somebody something, it can either balloon into something else, and before you know it, you have a myth, or it can just not tell the whole truth, and you're trying to find out what the truth is. So this was a great conversation, and that's one of the things that we're building in, trying to make sure that we have this monthly meeting, that we're doing kind of check-ins, but also understanding that there has to be something that we do more when it comes to systems and when it comes to communication in the system, because most of those groups, they operate out of from two type of radio frequencies. And so trying to coordinate between groups sometimes does not work. Well, one group is here, one group may not be here based on what they may be doing. And so just being mindful of that, and then as well as pulling in the Renfro group, from Downtown Raleigh Alliance, and then having that conversation with them as well, because we understand that Breezeway, Go Raleigh Station, all that is connected. All that is connected to where people are trying to figure out, who is doing what, where's everyone, and then how can we address some of that. And now I believe the first line of business is coordination of how we communicate, so that way there's nobody missing when it comes to information, and that people are moving forward. The de-escalation piece that I spoke about, that I'm building, that will have conflict management as well as just a little negotiation, because what you don't want to have is an operator getting into a situation with someone and trying to move them, and this conflict moves over to some kind of physical abuse, even someone that is on the platform. So being able to talk through that terrain and continue to build on that training, that it helps them feel better about what they do and how they do it, but also it helps mitigate, I would say, some of those issues that may trickle over onto some kind of volatile incident. I've met with Acorn's unit, and I'm sure you guys know about Acorns, and they've agreed that they're going to do like pop-up shops there and come and, just meet with some of the people, because what we find is that most of the people that are there at Go Raleigh Station may not be using the service, but they're asking for some kind of service. So our job is trying to figure out, what service they need if they're not using the transportation service, so that way there's something there that they can get, because they may become, in the big picture, the problem, which is not really a problem that we want to criminalize, but understanding that they may have some mental health issues. So that's about a little bit, what I'm doing, because there's so much more that I'm working on going in. But I do know and understand that part of what I do and how I do it takes coordination and building, I would say, a sound team, because I have no governance over anyone that I spoke about. But the goal is showing that people have shared value, and also that we can do this together, and that there's a way to do it that will become tops in this region. Any questions for me?
Not a question, but just a statement, probably. I know you have goals and targets, and you want to do de-escalation, but you also have to have other tasks along that can be parallel at the same time. So I don't want us to just focus on de-escalation, and we're working with the drivers. We want that too, but we want everyone to be safe. We want the system to be clean and presentable, because if it's not attractive to the drivers, it's not going to be attractive to the riders. So we had a plan in place. I'm not sure what happened. Go Raleigh was clean. Moore Square was clean one time, and then we stopped. Like, we have to stop the stop and go situation. We had security stop. So it's like, it has to be continuous.
Right.
We have to make sure not just downtown is safe, but all other stations are safe.
Correct.
So let's
Correct.
not just focus on one area. We focus on the entire system. How can the riders be safe, and how can the drivers be safe? So think of action plans and how do we move forward, make the whole system safe and clean and presentable. And we talked about power washing the stations. We need to make sure we power wash the buses as well.
Correct.
Because if the buses are not clean, no one wants to ride it. No one wants to pay for bad service.
Right.
So the goal is to increase riders. How do we increase riders? Make everything presentable. Make the whole plan presentable for the drivers, new employees. How do you make this package pretty?
Correct.
If it's not pretty, it's not going to be pretty for anyone.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Williams. If I can just say this before anyone asks a question, because maybe what I should have done is unpack more, because it's just like looking at a workflow chart and understanding that you have some work that's in process, and then some things you can't do before you move next. But what we've done and how we're designing it is that we're kind of doing some things simultaneously, as well as looking at trying to get it clean, trying to do some posting, so make it more visible when people come, and there's visitors who visit us, and they can see what the platforms are, colorizing or making colors to, that the roadway looks very vibrant, as well as then doing the cleaning. We're also working to make sure that when it comes to the signage, that people understand what the codes are, what the rules are, so that way they can ride as well. And so all that really is working simultaneously. There's not, when I say that we're working on those things, I don't want you to take from me that what we're doing is going step by step. I am working on steps, but what we're doing, we're working things in place, and we're looking at work that we can do simultaneously, because some things that we can't do have to go up the chain, in other words, based on some statutory limitations or city ordinances. For instance, because one of the things that the manager of the facilities thought that was a good idea was doing multiple days of cleaning at the Go Raleigh station. But the issue is that, if he tries to do it at a time where there's no one, that cuts liability down from anyone getting hurt, then we have a noise ordinance that we have to think about. Because if they wanted to do it from 12 to when it closed to 6 in the morning, where there's no pedestrians, no one there, and clean straight, because that's how long it would take, straight cleaning, then we have to think about that noise ordinance. So some of those things, as I said, that we have to think through and make sure that we are doing it based on what the city ordinance or the law says, because that's what we had this conversation about, even when it comes to enforcement, even when it comes to things that you have to charge versus things that you don't have to charge. You have another question? I see you thinking of someone else did.
So the noise ordinance about cleanings, I'm perplexed about that, but I'm going to table that discussion because I'm not agreeing with that one. But Terrence, you had a question.
Oh, no, I just, it's just a continuation from my last comment. I would love to just know, as you plan out your strategy to really make an impact, what are the like numbers, the metrics that you're looking at to say, hey, I've been successful
Right.
in the 90 days. We just love to just see what's your baseline.
And thank you, Mr. Ruth, and what Brian, our deputy general manager, say. There are things internal that we can pull, but the major challenge, and I have to say it out loud, is that when you are dealing with independent agencies that are contracted, then they have their own system, and then trying to sometimes get into those systems, then you have to go through their red tape to get into the systems. Because I know RPD, who is good at what they do, they are tracking how much involvement or how much assaults or whatever happens, but I'm not a part of RPD. See, I'm not their chief, I'm not their captain or the lieutenant. Same with Capitol. So that's the major challenge, but I say it's a challenge that I'm taking head on to try to figure out how can I capture that data that I know that you're going to ask for about operator assaults, about citizens assaults, about arrest, about non-arrest, about mental health, that they have, that we've got to make sure we put in the system for.
And I have a question, kind of comment or suggestion. First, I think it's good that that you haven't been in this position for a short time, because someone who's new to a role can actually, if you're given a lot of information and data, you can actually create a new standard or change something for the better. Coming in, having fresh eyes and fresh minds on it. One of the suggestions that I made, and this in relation to with the young lady who made the public comment about to be kind of cognizant of, and I understand 100% kind of what she's saying about the aura or some of the environment around, the Moore Square area. Some suggestions would be I would like to wind up knowing about in the future, how often is there any type of security patrolling? Either, I don't know if it's you guys have independent security or if that's a plan, or if you have RPD, because one of the elements that has increased is, there's a common belief or a common knowledge amongst some of the population that I work with in my normal role. Which usually involves either substance abuse, mental health, things like that. But just so that you know, like there's a common theme that a lot of people have told me about, which is, pretty much if you go up to, the Moore Square, almost the Moore Square area, right there near Blunt Street, going up Martin, and even on the back end, or going up, was that Wilmington Street? But there's a lot of nefarious drug activity, meaning that there's a lot of people in town who know if you just go there within 10 minutes of not even knowing someone, you can come away with one of the big three: crack, heroin, or fentanyl, or meth, right? And you don't even have to know the person who's selling it. It's freely offered sometimes. It's sold right out in the public sometimes, just broad daylight. So security-wise, for the patrons, for the people who are just walking down the street, people trying to eat at the barbecue restaurant, all of those areas. So increasing some element of visible security patrolling.
Right.
Because like you mentioned, overdoses, they happen in the bathroom, they can happen on buses. Maybe, and that can also help reduce, some of the issues, because a lot of stuff comes comes together. Another issue, I don't know if you guys have addressed this or have ways to address it, but kind of like a loitering policy for anyone inside the station. Like if you've been there, if someone's noticed, like you have security and you see someone's been there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, that can be addressed to be asked to leave. Like if you're not riding the bus or getting on the bus or waiting for the bus, do you really need to be inside of that little, right where the buses and the terminal's coming in? And that just kind of reminds me of just one of the policies that from where I'm from back in Atlanta, like I grew up, they basically made a policy where you couldn't cross two parts of a section of the street within an hour because of cruising and all of that back in the day, back in the 90s. But something like that, right? Because I have seen people like at the station for 4 or 5 hours and haven't moved. So I don't know if you guys have your own security or have a plan. That's something to address, like an amount of time that people can just be hanging out around the station and maybe increasing security presence. And then lastly, just one suggestion with data. I know you can't track the data from on one end, but do you guys, when, let's say if there's an incident on a bus and a driver has to call RPD or has to call 911, are you guys able to track, like, one good data way would be what routes are receiving the most 911 RPD
complaints
calls
or issues
or
or
complaints or
problems?
issues, whether
Yes.
if it's the 21, the 12, the 2, the 3. Do you guys have the ability to track that? Because I'm sure that information would come from your drivers.
Right.
I don't know if drivers are supposed to report
They
if
are.
there's an incident, but that may be one way to have some data for us.
Right.
It's just from you guys' end
Mm-hmm.
and that may be able to help kind of where there's some issues and then can kind of go forward and how to address policy. But I do believe that drivers should be safe. You got to feel safe at your job in order to do it well.
Right.
And so I just want to express that maybe some things to suggest to look at going forward, because it did look good, but I mean, everyone has seen the elements, that hangs around, and it's not Go Raleigh's fault, so to speak, right?
True.
But I do think as an authority, and, we do have at least some sort of obligation to try to help change and improve that area in the ways that we can.
Correct. And I'll start with the latter question about reports. I know our Ms. Maxwell, our safety director, they do collect based on officer operator incidents and making sure that, those incidents are tracked back to us so that way we can handle those things, because she does a thorough job in supervising or just making sure that procedure is being met, people are following procedure. When it comes to the patrol, Capitol and Raleigh, as I said earlier, they're independent, though Capitol is under contract and Raleigh is under obligation based on being a transit unit. And based on Raleigh being a transit unit, then of course, they are operating within the confines of their city's jurisdiction and working to make sure those laws are enforced. Now, Capitol, just not too long ago, have signed a contract to actually start patrolling Moore Square. And so they are patrolling Moore Square, but based on Go Raleigh Station, that contract is strict about where they patrol, and they patrol inside the station on the platform, and then there's some boundaries that they can move around to make sure they're cutting down on some of that flow of traffic that might not be unwanted. Now, when it comes to the use of the big three, as you say, I've noticed that is a problem because we have some routes that are issues when it comes to bus stops that people are doing some of those big three. And so now what I've been working on is getting somewhat of maybe a special operation or plan for Raleigh PD to address that, because as you asked the question, in Michael's world, if we had, right, a security police or authority police, then I can address those things as a director and we can move and then I can present. But as someone who's coordinating and getting people to see the like value and also seeing where your jurisdiction picks up, where we don't have, then it's for them then to start trying to figure out how they're going to address that. Because we have bus stops that I deem that are not the best bus stops for our people to be, but I want our people to be stopping at, but also for the people to be catching. And I just think that there has to be more when it comes to that bus stop. And then when it comes to Moore Square, I'm glad you did understand, and I've been here long enough, 16 years now, to know when Moore Square was Moore Square. And most of the element that is in Go Raleigh Station is in Moore Square now. And because they're there, I believe we're taking an approach that we cannot criminalize everybody, but we do need to have some governance or some rules in place so that when there's a loitering or trespassing, then we can handle those loitering and trespasses. But just like Capitol Security, on how they work, they make no arrests, but that arrest authority lands on Raleigh PD. And Raleigh PD, like a lot of people, a lot of agencies, they can run short-handed. They may be called away, but when they're there, they're very effective.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. A lot has been said. You only been here 40 days,
47.
47.
I wasn't counting, though.
So we invite you back
Yes, ma'am, I'll be back.
because you gave a lot. So definitely invite you back because we definitely need to hear those statistics, and we definitely want to hear the updates.
Okay.
If you don't have the data next month, we'll give you to November. We're a little patient.
November would be good.
But I would just say definitely communication and use those, make those connections. Even though they're separate agencies, you still can have those connections. If there are things that you see are not appropriate bus stops, bring that back to here. Let me know, let the whole committee know, let the route committee know, that'll be me. See if something we can change. Everything is subject to be changed, see what we can do to make those changes. About the shortage with supervisors, maybe there'd be a plan to figure out how we can get more supervisors or come up with another plan how to get drivers to the stations. That may be something to think about. Not today, because we are a little bit over time. But so I want to be mindful of everyone's attendance and be conscious of that, but kind of think about that going forward. Are there any other questions overall? If not, thank you for coming. Appreciate you.
Thank you, ma'am. See you in
Thank you.
November.
Say that again.
Seeing you in November
No, I'll see you in October,
Oh, it's
but
a-
we need data. I'll give you to November for data.
for the data. Okay,
Yes.
yes, ma'am.
I'll see you both in October. But I'll adjourn this meeting at 5:51.